so excited about this week's video because I've been longing to come to your chateau for so long. I'm here with Vivienne and this is the Château de la Croix-Boisée, which is a spectacular Art Nouveau chateau, and that's very rare, isn't it?
It is indeed,
France?
yes.
So you are in for an absolute treat. It's the most perfect home. We're staying here at the moment, so I can really vouch for how lovely it is here. Would you mind showing everyone around?
This is the first time that I will be publicly giving a tour of La Croix-Boisée. We used to live in a much larger chateau. We were there for 18 years. We raised our daughter there, but it was time to part with that one. We just needed to find something that was more manageable for ourselves, but we had the chateau bug. So we found this beautiful village of 1,000 inhabitants nestled in the Loire Valley, exactly equidistant between Le Mans and Tours. So when we feel like we need to go to a bigger castle, if we're not going to descend on you, we have Villandry and Ussé and Chinon and Chenonceau and all of the grand castles of the Loire Valley right here at doorstep. And we do also have to commute to Paris. And so it's an interesting location and a beautiful part of France.
I think you have everything here, as you say, Paris and the town, walking to the bakery. And unfortunately, that means that there have been a lot of pastries here, which is why I'm wearing something very loose today.
As am I. One of the things we loved about this chateau is, as you said, it is a Belle Epoque chateau. It was built at the end of the 1800s. It was finished around 1905. It has all these wonderful elements of Art Nouveau, but also, like a lot of 19th century chateau, it has elements from other epochs as well. And that suits me to the ground because I don't like having just one style of furniture or things from one place. It's a home. It's a chateau where 2, sometimes 3 people live, but also we're hoping where up to 16 people can stay.
So you have the best of both worlds. You can have party weekends with all of your friends, but it doesn't feel too overwhelming for 2 people.
Given its size, it has a lot of chateau style in a very small space.
Well, I could be wrong, and let me know in the comments what you think, but I suspect that this is probably most people's dream.
Oh,
it's a chateau that still feels warm and homely, but has all of the grandeur that you could possibly want.
Why don't we start right where we are right now? Here in the entrance hall, we have a mix of a lot of different types of art that we've collected in various furniture pieces. One of the things, though, that we loved is that we have this tapestry, which is a reproduction of a 16th century tapestry that's found in the Cluny Museum, which I think might be one of my favorite small museums in Paris. I love decorating with birds. Anything to do with a bird theme, you're going to see as you walk around. There's a lot of this going on in our house. I do collect Sèvres biscuit porcelain scattered around the house. I've got little pieces of this and I find it very beautiful in its simplicity. But Sèvres porcelain was much more common in the 18th century. Over here, we have a couple of Chippendale chairs. We have a set of 10 that we've been taking with us from place to place because Simon is English. It's great to be able to have certain English pieces as well because it does reflect our heritage.
You're not just mixing different periods, you're mixing different countries.
Absolutely.
I think it's part of what makes a house feel very homely.
Yes.
We learn about you and Simon and Isabella as we walk around.
And it makes the rich tapestry of life. And I think that's one of the reasons I love tapestries, because if anybody has studied how they're made, all of the different pieces and the threads that go through are so interesting, and it makes for a story. All of our lives are our own little story that we love to share with other people. And we're just so happy that you're here and that we can share it with all of you.
That's such a beautiful way of putting it.
Let's go into what was the original entrance of the chateau. I should explain this is a chateau of 2 faces. So the rear of the chateau looks very Napoleon III, but the front of the chateau is this complete fantasy of Art Nouveau, Renaissance. There's a turret. There are all sorts of very weird and wonderful and bizarre carvings, and even stripes made of brick and tuffeau stone. So this is actually the original entrance of the chateau. It faces the village, and this room is original to when the chateau was built. We call it the Orangery because we put orange plant in here.
I can see an orange. There is an orange.
And we were really inspired by Château Gaillard, where the Orangery is also in the front of the chateau, built in exactly this same shape. But this is a very Belle Epoque room. You can see the tuffeau stone and the brickwork of the outside of the chateau up close in here, which is really interesting. The floors are original encaustic stone floors. So everybody's seeing these kinds of floors everywhere in stores and things like that. But this is how they originally looked, and they're cement and they're about this thick. When we moved in, it was a huge renovation job because most of the panes of glass were missing. And so the first thing to do was to make this room airtight. And it was a big project to stabilize the floors. And then of course to decorate and create a space that would be warm and inviting. But because we no longer use use the entrance, which is back here, we decided to have a comfortable sofa. We put up a mirror.
I love what you've done because you're still letting the light in with the very thin voile curtains, and the mirror is a stroke of genius.
And a bit like Versailles, because we have two mirrors bouncing off of each other.
6 of myself now.
Yes. It adds a lot of extra light. And so especially in the winter months, to have something that's nice and light and bright and warm and cheery. When it's cold and gloomy, then we have this warm, luscious space. My favorite recent acquisition is this rug.
I saw it as soon as we arrived.
It's actually a needlepoint rug. Someone has done this by hand, and it's marvelous. It's got people riding on elephants and palm trees, and it's got all these wonderful colors in it as well. It makes me very, very happy.
It did. As soon as I walked in, I thought there's not enough elephants in my life.
No, absolutely not. Here we have a Louis XV display cabinet that actually suffered some damage in our move. It had rounded glass on the front and a mirror that, as you can see, was broken. But we're going to have it repaired. But some of you,
a lot.
yes, we had an extraordinary adventure earlier. We went and met what we believe is France's oldest pottery painter. He paints in the style of Delft. We found so many wonderful treasures.
I will put a link to our visit there. We bought the best tortoise, didn't we, Philip? All covered with the most perfect paintings. But I have to say that you got such treasures, and you've made a whole video about him.
Yes, it's incredible to watch the processes of these artisans who still practice the way they've been working for 70 years at least.
It was a privilege. I couldn't believe it. Vivienne said, oh, there's this a very old pottery painter, and I didn't realize you meant the man himself was very old. And he showed us his atelier, his home, all of the works that he'd been making throughout his life. It was the most fascinating thing, and I really recommend watching it on Vivienne's channel. Can you explain what it is that we're looking at?
So, believe it or not, there are 2 wig stands, and in the middle we have a reproduction of a game that was played in the court of Louis XIV. And it's all about the pathways that love can take. The dice are rolled, and depending on where one lands on the different trajectories, we see whether someone's going to fall into the dangerous sea or the lake of indifference, or they might find tenderness or obedience. And so we had great fun.
The most terrifying one has got to be the lake of indifference.
I think so.
If you're in love, that's got to be the worst, hasn't it?
Negligence is in there too.
Yeah, it's not great.
That's not a great one
But
either.
indifference?
But gentleness is lovely, and probity. Haven't heard that word for
Not for a very long time.
So this giant mirror here was actually original, and there are 2 entrances on both sides. One that takes us into the entrance hall where we just were, and on the other side is going to take us into the room that we now use as the music room.
This is gorgeous. And the heart, oh my goodness, it's so perfect. This is one of the most chateau-y things that you could possibly ever have in a chateau. It is glorious.
Thank you. Our daughter plays the harp. She plays it beautifully. And
of course she does. Is there anything that Isabella can't do? Honestly, I don't think.
Don't let her hear you say that. She's very accomplished, and we're very proud of her. We are all amateur musicians. We love music. We love to sing. In here, we've got the harp. Simon plays the guitar. And we have over here the little baby grand piano, which was the first item of furniture that my husband and I ever bought together. We had no chairs, we had no bed, we had nothing to our names. And so we went out shopping to try to buy some things secondhand that we thought we could use as a young couple. Absolutely. And we emerged with a 15th century Flemish statue, a baby grand piano, and some stained glass windows.
I like the way you roll.
Yes. Yes.
So were you sleeping on the floor at this point?
I think it was an air mattress, if I recall.
next to the piano.
Yes. But we still have all of those things, all of these years later, many years later.
It is strange how the things that you need the most urgently are not the things that you keep for a lifetime, not the things that you take from home to home with you.
Things that bring you joy.
Yes.
Another very interesting thing about this room is that it looks like we have wood paneling and wood moldings. It's not wood, it's painted. It's a faux paint finish everywhere. It's very well done.
It's so well done. I would never have known.
It is.
See, it's such a light, fresh finish to the room with the pale wood and the pale green.
The rug beneath our feet is an original Aubusson carpet.
My goodness.
And it's not that easy to vacuum. but it's pretty.
It's very pretty. It's very pale as well. So it's a champagne-only room.
So you might recognize the chairs. Some of these are in the Orangery. I like to have large sets of things, and so this room can be converted into a dining room if we bring the other chairs in. We sourced them in Brussels, and we found 8 for 400 euros. 50 euros a chair, and they're each individually hand needle pointed. And the paintings are my paintings. So I used to exhibit professionally years ago in Paris, and we still have a few of my pieces floating around.
That is extraordinary. I didn't realize they were yours. You are incredibly talented.
You're so kind.
And I love the colours. There's such life and movement. Whilst I haven't seen Vivienne's paintings before, I have seen other things that she has painted, which you will see later on, which are jaw-droppingly impressive. But that's a little secret till later.
It would not be a chateau with a lot of retro vibes if we didn't have an authentic His Master's Voice gramophone. Let me see if I can get it to... Oh, it is turning. Hold on.
This is a Hawaiian waltz in the music room. We should... How do you do a Hawaiian waltz, Vivienne? I'm following your lead.
1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3.
I'm loving the music room.
You're wearing the right dresses for it.
How does a gramophone repair itself after we haven't played it the whole time we've been here? We thought it got damaged in the move. That's amazing. I can't believe it's working. And we have to play it later because we've got some great music.
Definitely.
Here we've got our little baby grand. It is burr walnut in the style of Queen Anne. It's a very old piano, but it actually does still play. But the reason I wanted to bring you over here is that, Stephanie, you might recognize these lamps.
We have the same bedside table lamps. Philip has that one on his side, and I have this one on my side. So I look at this one every morning and every evening. I can believe it when I walked in here.
It's so sweet. Knowing that, I looked it up, thinking that they were Asian, probably from the 40s or 50s. But underneath, if you look, they're actually Italian, from a company called Santini.
Oh, we don't have the label underneath ours.
idea.
I didn't know.
You wouldn't think they're Italian, would you?
Santini classic figure made in Italy.
Yep.
Well, I've discovered something new today.
It reminds us of our travels to Italy together.
Yes,
you see, there's
it's
always a
meant to be.
connection. And now we're going to walk into the library. Now, this is not the original library. When we moved into the chateau, this was actually the kitchen, believe it or not.
Oh, I see. So you've swapped it round.
We have, and we're about to show you the kitchen, but the kitchen is now in what was the billiard room.
Oh.
And this was the kitchen, but the original kitchens would have been downstairs, which is where the spa is.
So this was a second kitchen.
Yes, something probably from the 60s or 70s. And we thought it was so charming when we saw it, but then we realized it was actually very small.
Yes.
Because of all the doors and windows. And it
Oh
was...
my goodness, of course. Sorry, I'm looking around realizing how many there are. Why do you put any of the units?
Exactly. We turned this into a library. We did paint the walls black.
I really like the black, especially with these paintings against it. It works so well. And it also makes it feel very snug and cozy. I spent a lot of time in this room this afternoon, actually. And you have such good books.
It's a great work. Oh, thank you.
I wanted
think
to
you can tell a lot about a person from their books.
Yeah. I spent a long time pouring through all of these shelves.
And the only downside is that in our last chateau, we had a much larger library with many more shelves. And so we have boxes and boxes still of books to pull out. Simon has become, since we've lived here, a very gifted carpenter, and he's planning on building wall-to-wall shelves.
You are
It's going to be beautiful. Obviously, we have a lot of different books, and we kind of pick a side of where we put our books. But when Stephanie and I were in the Dordogne, we went to a wonderful bookstore, and I found The World of Downton Abbey.
You're saying that that is not Simon's book?
I think it's made its way into the side, but it's not.
Next to Camus and Graham Greene.
Yes, exactly. The alcove behind you, this is not the original alcove. There would have been tall doors, but when the last owners put the kitchen in, they dropped the ceiling and they created this alcove, presumably to pass food through, because also what is now our music room was the dining room. Straight ahead, you'll see that we're creating a little bit of a cinema. And so Simon also...
I spotted that up there.
Yes, he put in a projector and we're going to create a casing for the screen. I'm going to change the curtains. There are lots of changes that are going to happen in here. And so I'll be excited to share those.
This is where we should have watched the vlog last night because Vivienne made a really great vlog of our trip to Egypt together. There were a group of us on a little boat going around Lake Nasser in between Egypt and Sudan, and we were so isolated out there visiting these ancient temples. And you made a murder mystery, and it's so funny. And so we were watching it together, but we watched it on the screen.
Because that's what we do. Vloggers get together and we watch vlogs.
We watch vlogs. That's so tragic, isn't it?
You were a really good sport. But we do have this wonderful little nook which you've discovered for working, looking out over the rose garden.
Computer there. I was just working here. It's idyllic.
The ceiling was painted with this lovely little sky, and I thought it was so cheery and fun and decided to keep it. And that also reminds me of another story to tell you. This little leather banquette was actually not black. It was green. One day I thought, well, leather can be stained. I'm going to go ahead and stain it and make it match the rest of the room rather than have to have it recovered. This was my brilliant idea. And I went and got the leather stain and spent the day staining it. And it worked out beautifully. And I had to hurry because we were on our way to a party. And then when I went to wash my hands, I realized that I had not worn gloves.
And skin is basically leather.
That's exactly it. Skin is basically leather. And so for about a week, my hands and arms were black. And then they were like purple. And they looked like they were about to fall off from gangrene. It was insane. So that's my story of the black banquette.
I've run upstairs to give you a quick sneak peek of our bedroom that you'll be seeing more of later. It is absolutely perfect, insanely comfortable, and there is only one tiny little change that I'm making to the bed, and that is because I brought along my own pillow, which seems incredibly weird when, let's face it, the bedding here is so luxurious. But as somebody who has a very big age gap with her boyfriend, I have to start thinking about wrinkles. And that is why I use the Omnia Sleep and Glow pillow. And I'm very lucky because Sleep and Glow have offered to sponsor this video with a quick ad. I've been using this pillow for months. I will not go anywhere without it. It makes a huge difference to the way I look when I wake up, because there's a difference between wrinkles that are formed with age over time and those that are formed because of sleep. They're called sleep wrinkles, and they tend to be more vertical, whereas the aging ones are horizontal. And you could throw all of the Botox and face creams in the world at your face and they'll do nothing against sleep wrinkles. They're formed when your face is pressed against the pillow at night and just keeps doing this. So you end up with puffiness around your eyes, wrinkles around your eyes and your nose and your lips. And anyone who is under 40 won't know what I'm talking about, but there comes a time when you wake up in the morning and the imprint of your pillow stays on your cheek. But this pillow is absolutely ingenious. It has this unique 3D design. I've never seen anything like it, which means that your face is floating over the pillow at night, completely wrinkle free. I'll show you. It's great. So with a normal pillow, my face is like this. My whole life I've had pillows like this, all squished up. And with the Omnia pillow, my face is floating, and yet I'm incredibly supported. It's so comfortable. And I have to say that since I started using this pillow, I've also been getting less neck and back pain. It even comes with its own little pillowcase to fit the contours, and it's made of Tenkel fabric, which is made out of Australian eucalyptus wood. I have become extremely addicted to using this pillow. That's why it comes everywhere with me. If you'd like to try it for yourself, then click the link in the description box below. They even have a 30-night sleep trial with a money-back guarantee, but I'm definitely not going to be sending mine back. Let's carry on touring this beautiful chateau.
Okay, now we're going to walk into the Salon Rose, because of course it is La Vie en Rose. This is a very cozy room that can actually be turned into a much larger room next door. We have these doors that open all the way into the dining room. Completely
gorgeous.
Open. Thank you. It is a cozy room. As you see, we filled it with modern sofas.
Comfy sofas.
But we are a family who has lots of friends, and we want people to be surrounded by beauty, but also to be surrounded by comfort. There are a couple of interesting features. This room is actually not painted pink. It is a marble marmerino finish, and so it has this wonderful kind of sheen when you see it in person. It probably doesn't show up very well on the film.
It gives a lovely rich depth to the walls. It's not just a flat colour.
Exactly.
It keeps changing in the light.
Exactly. And then you might remember the gold clock.
Who could ever forget this clock?
So Stephanie and I and a number of our friends were in the Dordogne visiting some other friends. We went to a marvelous brocante, and my husband Simon and I spotted this, and it was completely over the top. But why own a chateau if you can't buy things that are slightly over?
I think it's probably one of the main reasons. I think you have to have a little bit of a theatrical flair to want to live in a chateau in the first place, because the work is endless.
Yes.
So at least you can have fun with things like this.
Exactly.
And he's actually just been painting, and all of the different paintings.
He's an
by the
artist.
side.
I love this about him. He's an artist. He's holding his paintbrush. He's painting.
It's gorgeous. There's even the little palette and the box of paints and brushes.
And that's the great thing about old things. You know, we can't walk into IKEA and buy this. We can buy other things that are useful and necessary, but we can't buy things like this. And so it makes it a lot of fun to have them and to save them, really, because how many people are happy to have something like this in their house?
He looks a lot shinier. I don't remember him being this shiny when we were in the brocante.
He's happy.
That's it. He's glowing from within.
Yes, exactly. He found his home. And then also in here, we have some interesting moldings on the ceilings. They're actually oak leaves and acorns, which is an unusual motif for ceiling roses and for ceiling ornamentation. But it falls into that natural Belle Epoque Art Nouveau era of bringing nature in, which we really like.
And you brought in the roses from the garden as well.
Yes.
Because the front of the house is covered in Pierre de Ronsard roses, and it's spectacular. The moment you
favourite.
arrive, it's immediately just puts you into the right frame of mind for the whole chateau. You have that pink and cream chateau with pink and cream roses in front. And then you appear
I do love roses.
in a pink rose floral shirt as well. It's idyllic here.
Even though there are other things in here I could talk about, the things that I love the most are actually two needlepoints that my grandmother did many, many years ago. And they're depictions of very famous paintings called Bluebird and Pinky.
It's so touching that your grandmother made them.
They're not at all typical of the era or of historical France in particular. They do have that fun kind of 18th century vibe, and they're part of our family story, and so they bring me joy. Now, this is on the other side of the Salon Rose. So here you see we also still have the doors that open up completely.
So you can have one big room for parties.
Exactly.
But the thing I love the most in this room is the thing that you're responsible for, because you painted the plates.
Yes, I did. I have.
Just mind-blowingly talented.
Thank you so much. I love birds, and I also love figurative painting, as you saw next door. So anything with a face, an expression, a character, personality really brings me joy, and I do really love birds. And I grew up looking at this beautiful book called Audubon's Birds of America that my family owns. It's beautiful. And actually last week my father gave me that book, the family book. So these are actually garden birds of Europe. So not of America, because we are here in France. But I love the idea of being able to see these beautiful creatures that we are surrounded by here in our garden. I've spent the last 10 years learning the techniques of painting in the style of Sèvres and Limoges. And I have some lovely, very old ladies who have been helping me through this process, one of whom actually did train with Sèvres. And so
Oh goodness, you're in the best hands.
it's a slow process. Some of these plates take up to 10 or 12 firings for all of the layers of color.
And how long does it take you to paint aside from the firing? So how long would the whole process be?
I might do one day of painting, backgrounds or just flowers, and then each bit has to be masked off for it to be fired for other areas. Like the gold has to be one firing, the outside has to be a different firing, the background has to be a different firing, and then there are layers of color, because a bit like watercolor, the way it works is that the light layers go on first and they must be fired, because you can never paint porcelain with a thick coat of paint or it just flakes off. And so it actually etches its way into the glaze. So unlike the pottery that we saw that's made in the style of Delft, where it's painted before it gets glazed, and then the glaze base on painting. This is glazed and then painted. So it gives a completely different effect, and that's why things like faience and pottery look totally different to fine porcelain in China.
You are an extremely patient woman and so artistic. How many plates have you made so far?
There's 6 on the table, and we have 8 more. So that is 14 so far. and I would be happy to show you all of them. I keep forgetting the names of the birds, and so on the back, this is the golden oriole, so it's got the Latin name, the English name. And obviously hand-painted my signature, and I use plates from Limoges.
And this is what used to happen in the past with several, certainly with Porcelain de Paris. The artist always wrote the name of the birds underneath.
Yes.
And you're just carrying on that gorgeous tradition.
And I do love Sèvres so much. I love the biscuit de Sèvres, like the items on the table, but also when it's glazed and painted, each one has its own unique beauty. So it really is a passion. I have many passions, unfortunately. I love many things, like you.
Oh, yes.
That our dining chairs are the Chippendale chairs. They're from the same set that we showed you in the entrance hall. In the entrance hall, we have two ivory colored armchairs. The tapestry, the needlepoint on the chair covers is different on each single chair. They feature these incredible, lovely 18th century birds. And some of them are light brown, some are dark brown, some are ivory. And it's really fun, even though we sit on them ultimately, to appreciate how much work went into them. One of my favorite things about this room is the tapestry. We were really lucky to be able to find tapestries to fit these big walls here and in the entrance hall. This one is also a 19th century reproduction of a famous tapestry called the Marché des Oiseaux, or the bird market, again, with the bird theme. And I just love it because if you look closely at it, the characters are really funny. They have so much character, so many expressions. The original of this tapestry dates back to 1775.
It's actually bringing back really lovely memories because I used to go to Hong Kong a lot as a child because my best friend moved there. And I remember back then, this is obviously many, many decades ago, there was a huge bird market at the time, which now I think is either tiny or has disappeared altogether. It wasn't quite as romantic as this, but I have to say that it's a very fond memory to me because I feel that I saw something that's being lost completely forever. And here we have what it was in the 18th century.
Yes. And the 18th century fascination with travel, with the Orient, with the sounds and the smells and the spices. And I feel like this tapestry really brings all of that to life. I love to gild and restore old mirrors, old picture frames, sometimes furnishings I add a little bit of bling to as well. This mirror here actually is one that I rescued. It was in a charity shop and I completely regilded it and saved the moldings, and so I'm quite proud of this. And then below that, I have more little biscuit of Sèvres figurines. I love figurines. I know they're not everybody's taste, but
loves them too.
But I think that they're really sweet and fun, and these particular ones are holding little birds in cages, and so that makes me happy. And a bird lamp, of course.
It's as though they've just stepped out of the tapestry.
So the dining room is another work in progress. It's absolutely not finished. It has beautiful silk wall coverings. I'm making some gorgeous damask curtains that are going to match the ones in the Salon en Rose. So when it opens up, it'll work together. My mid-century buffet in the style of Louis XVI is not fine quality, but it was just the right size. I think I can make it look much more authentic with a little bit of a very artistic paint job. And so
Can't wait to see what you do because that sounds like so it's made for the room.
Yes. And the other thing that I'm still working with in this room is that I do love 18th century furniture, and the Chippendale furniture is 18th century. So time period is appropriate, but the styles and the types of wood don't always go together exactly. So we're going to be changing and finding the perfect dining table, hopefully a little bit bigger because I do want to be able to seat at least 14 people in here. My husband and I have a disagreement about this lovely piece of furniture behind me. It's very lovely, but this might not be the space for it. We're on our way into what might be my favorite room in the house.
I think mine too, possibly.
But also I change my mind about my favorite room in the house all the time. We're in the kitchen, which used to be the billiard room. This room, when we moved in, had green shag carpet. It had orange striped wallpaper.
Did you bring yourself to change it?
I know, it was delicious. It really was. As we were pulling up the green shag carpet, we found this beautiful, original terracotta floor underneath, and that was it. That was a sign that we needed.
And it is beautiful. It has such depth to the colour and such shine that you've managed to create. And you can see that every single tile is handmade, and that uneven texture just gives it even more of a sheen as it catches the light.
And I really wanted a big kitchen. We want a kitchen that two people can cook in simultaneously because I strongly believe that's the key to marital harmony. And also being able to have something that catering can use, or large groups of people where everybody can be in together, sitting, working, talking. And so I kind of had all of these criteria in mind, and mostly to be able to look out onto the garden and have nature surrounding us and light coming in this room all times of the day.
And you can step just outside, straight into the garden.
Exactly.
It's an idyllic kitchen.
Oh, thank you so much.
It's light, and whilst we've been here, it's been the heart of the home.
Yes. The thing that a lot of people don't know about this kitchen is that Simon and I installed it ourselves. I did all of the design. I did it on architectural software. We ordered the cabinets from a company in the UK, but then he actually created them, installed them, did all of the moldings, all of the carpentry. And we
You are so lucky. I cannot believe he's suddenly become this incredible carpenter.
Well, at the time we had just moved out of our other house, and he did get another job soon after that, but he took a little sabbatical.
Yes.
And taught himself carpentry. He got a photography degree as well. And we worked, and then of course we had the pandemic, and so we had all the time in the world to work. We hadn't started the vlog yet, so sadly we weren't able to chronicle this, which was our biggest project by far. I would have loved to have done something more rustic, more traditional, and have more freestanding units. But the problem with that was that this is our only kitchen. We don't have an arrière-cuisine or lots of big pantry rooms to walk into, and so all of the storage has to be in here. Everything.
Yes, you have to make the most of every single inch of space.
Yes, like most people.
Well, that's absolutely true. And what I love the most is your layout, which is ingenious. You've completely done away with the idea of this holy triangle of the cooker, the sink, and the fridge, and you've done something much, much better. You've got to tell everybody how you did this, because honestly, it's the most usable kitchen.
It was important to be able to have multiple work zones. So there are 2 sinks, 2 dishwashers, 2 ovens, 2 cooktops, 1 halogen and 1 gas.
And this is for 2 people.
Marital harmony. And we do. Sometimes one of us will be cooking over here, the other will be cooking over here, because I love to make nibbles, I love to bake things, and I also love to cook things that take a lot of ingredients and cook all day long. Simon can whip up anything in the space of 15 minutes flat. He used to own a restaurant in Ireland, and he's just incredible. And so he likes to do things quickly and over on the big stove. I'll do things over here. And then also, because we all know that things in Château get a lot of hard use and they break down all the time, if you don't want to be really caught out, 2 dishwashers, 2 ovens, 2 sinks, and it works out really well.
It does. It's also extremely practical, because if one person's washing up, another person can be making tea and coffee with the other sink.
Exactly.
There's always a free sink to go and wash your hands before dinner. It's ingenious, and I love the fact that they both have bins next to them, and there's 1 dishwasher next to each sink. It's not 2 dishwashers together, which is what we have at Lalande.
Yes.
They're spaced out.
Yes, so that 2 people can be loading
Yes.
and working. We really wanted lighting inside the glass cupboards, and I also wanted a sense of depth and reflection, and so I lined the back of each of the wall cupboards with mirror, and I couldn't figure out how to make it stick, and so I actually used double-sided Velcro.
So you're so clever. I don't know how you come up with these things, and it's perfect. And I really like it because it's not just in the wall units, it's also in the open shelving. It makes such a difference, this play of light.
Exactly, and also it makes it look like we have 500 glasses, when actually we probably only have 200. We could not decide if we wanted an island or a table, so in the end, we put in both. And then for the worktops, again, we were debating, do we want to go with wood? Do we want to go with tile? Granite is the hardest stone, but I don't love always how granite looks with all the little speckles. And so the goal was to find a hardness of granite that looks like marble with the big veins.
Yes.
And we actually found this, which, believe it or not, is actually not black. It's dark blue, and it has hints of terracotta in it, and little blue flecks also, plus the big veining.
Yes, it picks out the floor.
I wanted to have a focal feature. In most chateaux, the cooker, like yours, is inside an ancient cheminée, an ancient fireplace. So the key was to create this focal point. And when we spoke to kitchen companies, they could not envisage what I was talking about, and they have very cookie cutter type
Yes.
products that they offer. And that's when we ultimately decided to do all of it ourselves. And in the end, that worked out really well because otherwise we would have had to wait the whole pandemic out without a kitchen. So we grew impatient, and on eBay of all things, I was able to find this fireplace, which was coming out of a chateau in the south of France. And so we brought it here, we installed it. It was painted to match the rest of the kitchen.
And honestly, this is a stroke of genius because it looks as though it's always been there.
And then I installed the mosaic, which is behind the oven. And this particular mosaic is exactly like the mosaic that I installed in our last chateau about 21 years ago, with one exception. Our daughter said, well, you've got the two lovers, you've got the two lovebird peacocks, but there's no baby peacock. Can you at least put the baby peacock into this one? And baby peacocks are not very beautiful, but I did put the baby peacock in anyway. So it reminds us of home. So this room's also not finished. I've got pelmets to go in. We're redoing the whole ceiling. We're getting rid of this not original ceiling rose. So I've got some wonderful fabrics, again, some more artwork, a whole collection of copper pots, and other things that we're still working on in this space. So earlier I mentioned that when Simon and I first got together in our first little place in Edinburgh, we went shopping and we bought 3 very useless items. One of which was 15th century Flemish carving, and it's now in our kitchen above the fridge. So I believe that any kind of art can go anywhere, and this is proof. And now I shall tell you about the story of the crazy chairs. First of all, these chairs are French, but we bought them when we lived in England. So they've been back and forth across the channel quite a few times. We fell madly in love with them. They're probably from Brittany, but each one has a different scene. We have unicorn dragons, sword fighting. We have lover dragons. We have dragons in a castle. These ones I think are winged dragons. They're like pegadragons. What would you call those? Flying dragons. Oh, these ones are sharing a sword. Oh, but these ones have mermaid tails, fish tails.
So they're also fantastic.
And these ones are flirting. Those ones are flirting.
Yes, they are flirting. I didn't see it at first.
Yes. And so, you know, these things, if you look at them just kind of on the surface, they seem really somber. But if you look more closely, there's so much humor in old things, and we obviously don't take ourselves very seriously, and so it's fun to be surrounded by things that are a little bit beautiful and a little bit silly.
This really is the most beautiful chateau. It's just delightful. And with the Pierre de Ronsard roses outside, it's incredibly romantic. I can't imagine Vivienne living in another house. Of course she was going to live in the most romantic chateau in France.
Simon is just about ready for dinner.
You have a very well-trained and pleasant husband, don't you?
I do, and he's busy in there cooking, but I did want to show you at least a sneak peek of some of the bedrooms, because you haven't seen them all yet.
No, just the one we're in, which is
Let's go.
gorgeous.
Here we are in the Joan of Arc room, the Chambre de Jeanne d'Arc.
It's so romantic. The bed.
Thank you. Everything in here was inspired by Joan of Arc because she is a prominent figure in this part of France. And also a lot of the imagery of Joan of Arc became very popular in the Belle Époque, which is, of course, the era of the chateau.
Yes.
We wanted some rooms to reflect that time period. And she became a sign of resistance against oppression in the country. And she was a secret sign. So there were a lot of books and pottery and things made of Joan of Arc, and it was kind of like a secret sign that, you know, they would not let themselves be invaded by the Germans, or they would stand against oppression. And then, of course, in other countries, like in America, she's used as a symbol of feminine power. A lot of places and a lot of people have different connections with Joan of Arc.
No,
but
absolutely.
we love the idea of her as an historical figure from this region. So this whole room was actually inspired by these images. These actually come from a rare book that dates to 1903, I believe. The book was falling apart, but the images were so beautiful and the colors were so beautiful that I thought it would make an amazing gallery wall for the room.
It does. I love the mirrored frames that you've chosen. I love the play of light you get from it. And the fact that it's 1903, so perfect, Belle Epoque still.
Exactly. And I'll tell you a funny story about the mirrored frames. So this was not my intention, but one of the viewers on my channel actually wrote and said, I love the way your frames are a symbol of Joan of Arc's armor. And so now I'm like, yes, they are.
Yes,
this is a really good idea. We did that on purpose. Exactly. And then the real treasure of this room is behind you here. And this is a very rare lithograph by the artist Albert Lynch. This is from 1894, and it predates a very similar image he did for Le Figaro magazine in 1904. And this is the only one of its kind. We have looked and looked and looked and looked and looked.
Oh my goodness.
And there it is. And so it's a real treasure. And we hope to be able to share this with people coming soon.
She is splendid. Just those eyes.
I know.
It's mesmerizing.
She really is. She's beautiful. And it's a very Belle Epoque image with Notre Dame in the background. And
Surrounded by the lilies.
exactly. The chandelier is 19th century tôle. And again, we thought that it was kind of evocative of the spirit of the happy, the lilies and the flowers.
And has that sense of the purity that you get from the white lilies as well.
Exactly.
I love your banner. It must be from a procession from a church.
Actually, this is a very interesting story. So I found that at one of the antique stores that we went to in La Châte. It was lined with the most wonderful silk, and this monogram that you see hanging slightly off kilter above the mirror.
It's like Marie Antoinette's monogram.
It actually is Marie Antoinette's monogram. At one point, we weren't sure if it was Ave Maria, but it is Marie Antoinette. It was completely falling apart, and I really wanted to save the monogram, and so I created that.
It's such a good idea because you'd never be able to see both sides at once anyway.
Exactly.
Well, you might have to find out more about where it came from, which church, but her robes, it's so beautifully made.
It is. And I feel like she's sort of wishing happy dreams on whomever is sleeping beneath. On this floor, which is the first floor, which Americans would call the second floor, we have 4 bedrooms, all en suite. We have the Chambre Jeanne d'Arc, which you've just seen, the room that you're sleeping in.
I love it. This one. It is so gorgeous. We've been sleeping so well, haven't we, for that?
Lovely.
It's
Lovely.
heaven.
It's a very small room, but it's extremely romantic. I mean, the tapestries, they're just making love everywhere you look. And I don't know if you noticed, but the old etchings in the bathroom.
Oh, we noticed. We noticed the etchings.
Teensy tiny bit naughty.
A little bit of naughtiness in the bathroom.
18th century frivolity abounds. And then here we have a room that we're almost finished with. This is the Empire Biedermeier inspired bedroom.
I can't wait to see what you do with that.
Almost everything in our chateau is quite feminine, quite pale, quite pastel. So we need a few very masculine rooms to ground things. And on the top floor, we just recently did a red bedroom. And so that also feels quite cozy and clubby. It's inspired by Venice Carnival from when we all went together. But this room is going to be extremely masculine. Simon loves Empire with strong lines, lots of black and gold and taupe and wood. And we can't wait to show you that.
It's going to be such fun to do.
And then our bedroom is a huge work in progress as well. The master bedroom, we've already done the master bathroom, but the master bedroom is being completely redone, and I'm upcycling furniture. We're redoing walls. Everything is going to be transformed.
All of that will be seen on your channel.
Absolutely.
If anyone is interested in that, check out Vivienne's channel.
And then in addition to this magnificent raspberry red bedroom, which we've recently renovated and showed on our channel, there are 3 more bedrooms upstairs and some bathroom renovations going on as well, soon to be revealed. Lots of work is happening and it's very exciting.
Oh, it's just so fun to be at the stage where you can plan all the lovely paint colours and wallpaper.
Exactly. And we're really hoping to get it done by next year, because what we would love to be able to do is to have a certain select number of groups that will come and stay with us, and we can show them around the Loire Valley and the antique stores, of course, or they can just stay here and just have a complete spa break.
Really about Joan of Arc.
Just looking at the roses. We haven't had a chance to show you, but I will do a complete tour on my channel of absolutely everything coming very soon. I've been promising people for a long time, but I really wanted you to have the first tour
Thank
of the
you so
chateau.
much. We've loved it. And you'll be showing people therefore the spa, the
Yes.
swimming pool. You've got vineyards,
Yes.
a beautiful garden with
Gorgeous outbuildings.
gorgeous outbuildings, but also the greatest statue in your garden, the most gorgeous statue.
Yes, with a big story as well.
Yeah, so much to show on your channel.
As some of you who've been following our channel know, from the very beginning, we would not have gone public on YouTube if it hadn't been for Stephanie's encouragement and the Château Diaries. And here we are 2 years later, great friends, many fabulous memories later. We've been on holiday to some extraordinary places.
It's been a joy.
We're just delighted.
Brought us together. And
Exactly.
That's been perfect.
And everybody out there as well. You know,
it
everyone
is incredible the community
encourages
that
us.
has grown up around
Yes.
a love of chateaux, shared love of chateaux.
Exactly.
Whether you are sitting in America watching us from there, or whether you're owning a chateau here, it's just something we have in common.
a love of history, beauty, culture, France,
Yes.
fun.
And homes big enough to
Friendship.
share with friends. and
Absolutely.
family. Not only have we had the most beautiful tour around this chateau, we now get to have dinner in the glorious dining room, cooked by Simon and by candlelight.
Thank you so much for having us.
Oh, you're welcome.
We are having the best time.
Enormous pleasure.
Come.
Hopefully the first visit of many.
I have to say, I feel guilty eating off this plate. Are you sure it won't scratch?
It'll be
No,
fine.
actually, these are really tough.
I feel so privileged to be using these plates. It's the hoopoe you said, right?
Yes, the African hoopoo.
It's my favorite one.
Everything can be functional and beautiful. There's no reason why it can't be. And nothing that we own should not be used. So it's a pleasure to share them.
Magpie.
Magpie, very, very nice. We're switching plates for cheese. I have a goldfinch who's adorable.
Blue tip with an attitude.
He does have an attitude.
I told you about the faces.
love it.
They have to have it. They have to have character.